everybody, Christy from Happy and Healthy Wellness with you guys tonight. For once, I'm actually not filming at 2:30 in the morning. It is like, I don't know, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning here in New York. But anyway, today I figured I would go through my 5 secret top weight loss tricks that I have up my sleeve. And maybe I have short sleeves today, but I've got a lot of tricks up my short little sleeve. So let's move on with that. So January, we know, is weight loss month. Uh, I become very busy usually in January's, because we've got a lot of people coming in, New Year's resolutions, wanting to do stuff to get healthy. So I'm going to say something quite to the contrary. People may think this is a little different, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So what I recommend for patients, one of my top tip number 1, is going to be not per se to go on a diet, although, certainly that is necessary for people at times and for different health conditions, but to focus on eating healthy. We go by something in our practice called the 90-10 rule, which I was trained on way back in the day at IAN. And basically the premise of that is 90% of the time we're putting healthy fuel or food into our body. The remaining 10% of the time, you can kind of get by with having some junk food floating around in there. But I feel like as people change, it's really just a lifestyle choice. You can either choose to be healthy or not healthy. I mean, it's kind of a simple thing if you break it down. So that's one really great tip, is to not maybe per se focus on going on a diet, but just focus on eating healthier. Here's my tip number 2. And it's another little secret trick that I use in my practice. So I'm giving you guys all my really good bread and butter, gluten-free, of course, today. So tip number 2 talks about focusing on what you want. So I have patients who get very discouraged and they look at themselves and like, I'm not the weight that I want to be. And it kind of is a self-manifestation, it's a self-manifesting thing, because you keep thinking, oh, I'm heavy, or I don't feel good about myself. And that, kind of fuels your brain to keep thinking like that. You don't want to do that. You want to reprogram what's going on up there, because I feel like if you're constantly thinking like, I'm never going to get anywhere, again, self-fulfilling prophecy, you're just not going to get anywhere. So I actually have patients take a piece of tape, and especially for my patients that weigh themselves all the time, listen, I'm all about, checking out calories and making sure that you're in good shape with that. But the other thing to keep thinking about, again, is not per se focusing on so much that, but looking at, okay, well, what was my healthy food intake today? And also, like I said, taking a piece of tape and sticking it on your scale, if you're one of those people that weighs yourself constantly, and write in the weight that you want to be. Really simple. You're putting it out to the universe, and every time you get on the scale, it's not discouraging. Again, I recommend this for people who are constantly weighing themselves, because you always want to remember, and most people know this, we know muscle weighs more than fat. So the more muscle mass that you have, obviously, that's going to change a lot of things. So, we see people that may not lose weight per se, but then they lose inches. So, hello, you're still getting yourself fit. You just may not see something on the scale. So maybe something to think about with that. Tip number 3, the rule for nutrition is you should lose no more than 2 to 4 pounds a week. So if you're not familiar with that, you may want to really familiarize yourself with that particular rule. The reason that we feel that way is because it takes a great effort to lose weight. So a lot of times we'll see people, especially if they are obese or they have a really large weight loss that they need to accomplish, will start dropping a lot of weight in the beginning of working out or beginning of eating healthier, and then they start seeing it plateau off, which is normal. So if that's happening to you, that's okay. That's a fine thing. However, what you should plan for yourself, again, set the expectation for yourself so you don't get disappointed, or so you feel like you met your goal and you did a great job, which is awesome. If I was there to give you a hug and pat you on the back, but I'm in the stuck in the computer. If you guys are watching me or on the phone. So anyway, 2 to 4 pounds a week, really more close to 2 pounds, I recommend. So, somebody can lose up to 10, 12 pounds a month. Again, the reason we recommend that is because we found through studies the weight stays off if you lose it slowly. You never want to lose weight too quickly or gain it too quickly. So those are things to really kind of keep in mind when you're on, a weight loss quest. So that's my tip number 3. Tip number 4 is The keto diet is like all everybody's talking about right now. It certainly had been popular in the past couple of years, but for some strange reason this year, all I'm seeing on Instagram and Facebook and other social media sites are people posting keto recipes and things like that. Keto is a really great dietary plan. I absolutely approve of it. It's something that I do kind of. I'm like a little bit between paleo and keto. People are always asking me, like, how do I eat? I'm more paleo, which the difference mainly, maybe let me back up a little bit with that. Keto and paleo are both kind of based on the Atkins diet, believe it or not. So Dr. Atkins really had something going when he started talking about, people eating like 100 eggs and bacon and things like that a day, and people were losing weight. The problem is he didn't really. This is actually a funny story. When I was going to school for nutrition, so this is a while back now. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how long ago that was. But whatever the case is, the cool thing about the school that I went to, I graduated from a couple of schools, but the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, excellent school. And what they would do is they would give us different food products to try out anytime that we came in. So I remember one day we came in and, Atkins was the topic of the day. So we're talking about that. And I remember they hand out these Atkins bars and you see like 15 nutritionists in a row sitting there flipping over, of course, looking at the ingredients first. And then it was like people just started throwing them out. It was like really kind of sad. Like it was a waste of food. But I wouldn't even say what was in the bar was food. I wish I had a wrapper of it, but there was hydrogenated oils in there. There were preservatives. There were colors and like weird stuff. So I had said to myself, well, the principle of this diet really makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, let's get our body into a state of ketosis where you're burning ketones and that helps the body burn fat. So what you're trying to do is get more energy from fat and from protein than carbohydrates. Now, if you remember the 1990s, back in the day when the first food pyramid came out, the really horrible one, and I'll try to post a picture of that for you guys, that had all the bread on the bottom, and then it just like went up with, fruits and vegetables and things like that. What a backwards way of eating. And sadly, most people don't know this. The food industry is who supports that pyramid. So the dairy industry is involved, the meat industry is involved, and there's a lot of food politics that goes on with that. So a lot of nutritionists get upset with that. Over the years, of course, that dietary pyramid has changed. It just recently had an upgrade a couple of years back. And it's more in line with what I would say would be appropriate. I think eating a diet with a fair amount of fats and protein, it's definitely one of the ways that you want to go. You still have to make sure you get some carbs in your diet, but I would recommend low glycemic carbs. So if you're thinking of vegetables, those would be your dark green leafies. Those are low on the glycemic index, things like zucchini. Carrots would be higher on the glycemic index because, they're a lot sweeter. Something like cucumber obviously is more water-based. So if you can kind of look through that, and there are charts you can look at online to help you out with that if you're confused. So that's one thing you can check out. As far as fruit goes, any berry is low glycemic along with green apples. So I recommend like strawberries, cherries, blackberries, bilberries, blueberries. Any berry is good. So they're your friends if you're doing something keto. Paleo is a little tiny bit different. Paleo does have carbohydrates in it that are high glycemic. However, it follows the same thing with the keto. There are no grains floating around in the diet. So I've been a nutrition connoisseur since like the early 2000s. And one of the things that I realized very early on when I recognized I was gluten-free, I needed to be gluten-free. I don't know, it's like 16 or 17 years now I've been eating gluten-free. It's crazy. But when I first started off, they didn't have gluten-free products. There was no gluten-free bread. There were no gluten-free muffins. Like you couldn't go pick up like stuff like that. So I, at a very early age in my early 20s, got used to just eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, meat, fish, and poultry. And that was it. That's my diet. Now, when I say that was it, that's a lot of food. There's plenty. A lot of people come up to me and they're like, oh, wait, what do I eat now that I'm on this diet? Somebody had posted something earlier today. What do I eat if I'm sugar-free, grain-free, dairy-free, and gluten-free? Well, I'm all of those things. Let me tell you, we cook some really great things at my house. So there are plenty of recipes online. And I always tell patients, here's tip number 4. Focus on what you can eat and not what you can't. All right? That's called the crowding out theory. We want to not look at the situation as negative, like, oh, I'm taking something away from you. Use this example in my office, and I don't have my Tigger stapler to use it, but I'll use a bottle of vitamins instead. If I took this bottle of amino acids and I stuck it in front of you, stuck it on my computer, and I told you not to touch this, it's a human instinct. You're going to be like, well, why can't I touch this? Like, what's going on? If I tell a patient they can't do something, first of all, that's not very positive or empowering. And unless the patient has a food sensitivity, I'm not going to force a patient to eat or not eat anything. But what I will do is say to a patient, okay, why don't you try to incorporate more water? Let's just say I have somebody coming in that's drinking like a lot of soda or something like that. The first thing is always to focus, okay, on what can this patient add in to get themselves healthier. So definitely eradicating maybe a sugar addiction would be, okay, let me focus on having seltzer or flavored, waters or things like that will still give you some taste, but you're eliminating sugar out of your diet. I always tell patients, here's maybe an add-on tip to tip 4, is to not drink your calories. Please pay attention when you're drinking stuff to see how many calories are in it. If you really don't like the taste of plain water, a couple of ideas for you. One, you can take sparkling water with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of lime and some agave nectar. This recipe is in my first book, the IBD Healing Plan Recipe book, and it tastes like Sprite. And fortunately, agave nectar, which comes from a cactus, is on the low glycemic end of things. So you can pop that into stuff. You could put stevia in water. I take Nutrimedic sells stevia drops, so I buy those instead. If you're looking at Truvia and things like that in the store, that's not real stevia. Real stevia is green. Okay, most people don't know this. If you find white stevia, that is a byproduct of stevia. You don't want to use that. But again, stevia is low on the glycemic index, so I get a lot of questions about that. Really important for me to put that out there for you guys. So that's another really great tip. So crowding out, and then also, focusing on what can you do versus what you can't. And tip number 5 today is two things. Routine is really important. Your body gets used to digesting food at a certain time when we eat at the same time every day. So I always recommend for patients, as much as you possibly can, if your schedule allows it, stay on, okay, breakfast at this time, I eat lunch at this time, I eat dinner at this time. After a while, short period of time, your body actually will start to produce enzymes to help break down said foods. So I think that that's fantastic, just to get yourself, in a better place where you're burning off calories and your body is able to extrapolate all of the good vitamins, minerals, and aminos and fats and things like that you're getting, your macronutrients and your micronutrients from your food. So that's just going to help you digest food better. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And then plus it's just good to be on a schedule anyway with those types of things. I find people do better if they are on a schedule. Again, that's not always realistic for patients, but it is something I recommend. As far as supplements go, if you're not taking chromium picolinate, I would recommend definitely to take a look at that. Chromium helps to regulate, it's a mineral that helps regulate your blood sugar. I've had patients with type 2 diabetes. My father's actually a good example of this. God bless him, 82 years old. You probably might be able to hear him singing downstairs. He's downstairs like singing all these songs. This is where I get my funny from. This man is hilarious. But whatever the case is, so he's down there hopping around and dancing. Probably why he's also still doing well at 82, going on 83. But anyhow, my father had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I don't know, like 6 months ago. And unfortunately, he's got a daughter following him around who is very well versed in this. My father is also a nutrition nut. So it was like, we're going to get rid of this. So he was put on metformin, which is typical. And I had spoken with his doctor, who I respect, and it's like, look, can he try chromium for a while and like try to get off metformin? If you don't know, metformin damages your kidneys. I mean, all drugs have some side effects, but I've seen some wicked things happen to patients. So it is possible to reverse type 2 diabetes. People will tell you can't, but there is tons of literature on it. You can go research this from a lot of credible books that have been put out there. And 3-4 months later, he got his blood testing back, and it came back that he no longer had type 2 diabetes. I mean, incredible. So first thing is obviously to be moving. You have to be exercising. which is something that was done in this situation. And then it was really, you put him on a keto diet, or it was like a paleo-ish kind of keto. It was somewhere in between there, because my dad still craves a lot of sugar, so I had to try to figure out a way to get him low glycemic stuff that he would like. My dad is probably like the pickiest eater ever, and that's coming from somebody who's worked with like thousands of autistic children, ADHD kids who are picky, or what we call problem feeders. You can read about that in a book I contributed to with Dr. Robert Malillo, which is called The Disconnected Kids Nutrition Plan. Zach Brown from the Zach Brown Band has wrote the foreword on that. Jordan Rubin is featured in that book. Dr. David Gentile, who I absolutely adore and think he's fantastic. Really wonderful person, very, very, very intelligent, and really knows his stuff when it comes to nutrition. So the powerhouse of a book to read, and it's got a lot of great recipes in it that are free of the top 8 common allergens. So I definitely recommend to check that book out. So going back to taking chromium, so chromium helps regulate the blood sugar. A lot of people don't get enough chromium in their diet today, so that's a big issue for people, I find. So 1,000 micrograms a day of chromium usually starves out your blood sugar metabolism. The other thing that I tell patients to try is to look at taking a digestive enzyme, because that's going to help you break your food down better. Maybe if you have a GI issue. Some of my GI patients are very, very low in weight, and they're looking to gain weight, and then I have the opposite that occurs on occasion. So when we look at something like that, I'm always checking to see what a balance for chromium is for someone. You could take more than 1,000 milligrams, but again, unless you're consulting with a nutrition professional that's looking at your weight and the other medications you may be on or other supplements, you really want to be careful with that. They do have a lot of vitamins on the market for weight loss, and I think it's really important to remember vitamins are not all created equally. There are few vitamin companies, quite frankly, that I trust, and there are a few out there. Nutrimetics is great. Claire Labs is awesome. I definitely love their products. You've got Apex Energetics that makes some really great products. Kirkman actually makes pretty decent products. Some of the stuff that they've come out with recently has been impressive. I've always been a big fan of Garden of Life. Again, I was fortunate enough to, my story about how I got into nutrition actually has a lot to do with me reading Jordan Rubin's book, his first book, not his first book, but The Maker's Diet, which is like, I think his second book. I don't know. He's got like 15 books. I don't recall. Sorry, Jordan. But anyway, that would be something for me anyway, to take a look at Garden of Life. Jordan Rubin is the founder of Garden of Life, and unfortunately doesn't own the company anymore. I cannot speak for who owns it at this point in time now. But this particular supplement is a whole food multi, so it does not contain any synthetic products. And if you take a vitamin, like, I hate to say this, like a Centrum or a one a day or something that you're finding in the store, you're probably not breaking it down. I know this from science, and then also early on in my career, I worked for a vitamin company, and part of my job was quality assurance. So I used to field calls from people and I would then have to make complaints to the FDA. Not to be gross, but you know how many people would call me and tell me, oh, wow, I just took this vitamin, and, I'm not naming the company I worked for, but they had really crappy vitamins. Anyway, sorry for that company, but we won't mention their name. The person would call and say that the vitamin was undigested in their stool. So I'm like, all right, well, that's not breaking down. Like, what is the point of taking that? The body does not understand what a synthetic vitamin is. So I always get whole food vitamins. So the vitamins I take have got like a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables in them. They're all organic, which is nice. This one has a weight loss blend in it. It's got ashwagandha in there, which is actually also good for your immune system, unless you're right hemispherically imbalanced, which is a whole other Oprah show of something I could talk about that has to do with functional neuro. This has got white tea and green tea extract in here. So green tea I always recommend for weight loss, unless you can't have caffeine, if you have a heart condition or something like that aggravates things. But that's really good. This has got a ton of chromium in it. Most supplements have no chromium in it. I get mad every time I see a supplement that doesn't have it in there. It really should. So this was really just designed, this particular one. And again, I don't get endorsements from Garden of Life. I just, fell in love with their products years ago. And again, I can't speak for, what's going on now with the ownership change. However, this has still been a really good product, so I still take this. The other thing that people always forget about is amino acids. Poor aminos. Like, everyone forgets about them, and they have such great properties. We're going to do a whole video one day on amino acids. I haven't gotten up to that yet, but Joe Mar, for some reason, is the only company that seems to make aminos. I mean, you have now, there's a few other companies, but I like them the best. Just out of different vitamin companies that I've been able to sample and try. Joe Mar is great. This is a 21 blend of pure form, not free form, excuse me, amino acids. So this has got everybody in here. It's got a little party going on in this bottle. Why do you want to take amino acids to lose weight? Ooh, well, I throw them on the table. First of all, if you see what bodybuilders do, a lot of times they'll take whey protein with aminos. I have to say, I have a big thing with protein powders. Most of them are really not good for you. If you look up research studies on them, they've found all kinds of foreign things in protein shakes, just really gross. The other thing to think about with that too is that whey protein does not break down well. And if you're on a keto keto, you can have dairy, but if you're on paleo, you can't have dairy. If you have a sensitivity, you can't have it. So I find whey protein is like actually the hardest thing to break down. So that would slow your digestive system down. So to me, that's oxymoronic. It doesn't make sense to take something like that. So I recommend just taking plain amino acids. The one thing that people don't know with aminos too is that you should not take an amino acid with a multivitamin like in the morning if that's your routine. I always have patients take aminos at night. Amino acids are meant to, they're kind of selfish, kind of like probiotics. They want to digest and break down in the body all by themselves alone. They don't want any company, and that would be the best way to take it. So take that as instructed in the evenings. That's going to help build up muscle mass. It's going to help your recovery after a workout much quicker. And I find that, when you're building up muscle mass, again, you're getting rid of fat faster. And I know from my best friend Tiffy and my big brother that doing strength training, you're actually still burning calories after you do strength training. Like I think it's up to 24 hours later. It might be 48. Please don't quote me on that. We'll have to have Tiffy on here one day as a guest. She can talk all about that because that's her expertise. So I know some about it, but not everything. So that's important. So a good multivitamin, a good amino acid, and a good digestive enzyme is great to add into the mix if you're looking at supplements. If you're looking at complementary stuff, you could throw in some probiotics in there. Great for your immune system, but also if you have a bacterial overgrowth issue, if you have GI issues, you may want to look at that, because what can happen for a lot of patients when I put them on probiotics is, especially if they have weight around their belly or they get bloated after they eat certain foods, it's telling you the body's A, not breaking things down well, which the digestive enzymes would take care of, and B, oh my God, I had a line brain moment. I have to just laugh at myself all day. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have like dementia when I'm 36. Let me go back. I need more fish oil. Somebody should yell at me for that. Where was I going with that? Oh, so bad bacteria in the gut. So you don't want to have bad bacteria in the gut. Most people have a mixed up ratio. We should have about 80 to 90% good bacteria in the gut and about 20 to 10% bad. Most people, the ratio is flipped the other way. Why is that? Well, unfortunately, most people don't farm their own foods anymore. And when you're pulling food out of the ground, even after you wash it off, there are still probiotics in there from the soil. So we're not getting that. And especially if you eat a lot of processed or packaged foods, you're really not getting any probiotics from anywhere. People also don't have as many fermented beverages as we used to, like pickles, for example, can be fermented. And that's why they last a long time. Fermented sauerkraut. I'm not talking about regular sauerkraut. And for my New Yorkers, I'm not talking about the really good soubrette stuff that tastes like fantastic. You can get raw fermented sauerkraut that actually has probiotics in it. Kombucha, which is another drink, which I'm pretty sure I have in my refrigerator. I'm just being lazy and don't want to get up right now to go get it. But you guys have seen my other videos with kombucha. Kombucha is a fermented drink made from either black or green tea or a combination of the two of them. Sometimes white tea is thrown into it as well. And that's really great for getting rid of bad bacteria overgrowth. So I definitely recommend that too. And you'll see most nutritionists don't talk about that, but my whole career, in the beginning of my career anyway, had been dedicated, and still is, to helping people with IBS and IBD. So I think that that's really important to take a look at. And I've seen this, like I said, countless amounts of times with patients. They come in, why did I lose weight? You just put me on a probiotic. You probably had a ton of bad bacteria growing in your gut. And again, while that sounds off-putting, it's just a phenomenon that goes on. And it has a lot to do with our food supply today. Particularly if you're not eating organic food most of the time, you're definitely not getting any probiotics from food that was sprayed with pesticides. It kills all the happy, good bacteria that we need in order to stay healthy. So those are my 5 weight loss tips for today, guys. So I hope that you enjoyed that little rant on that. I did not mention working out specifically in this video because I'm going to have Tiffy come on as a guest, my best friend, who is a personal trainer, and speak a little bit more about that since she is an expert, and I don't like to pretend to play expert when I don't know 100% about something. I need to really research and study something before I put this out for you guys. It's very important for me to provide patients and our channel with extremely credible information that's backed up by research studies that are done at very prestigious universities and so forth. So we're going to make a wrap on that one today. I hope everyone has an amazing, fantastic day. If you have any questions, pop them below in the comment box. If you like this video, please go ahead and share it. And you can always hit the subscribe button on the bottom so you can get more really awesome videos from us. I usually do a product review once a week. We talk about vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. And yeah, I also have my 100 Days of a Girl with Lyme documentary featured on there. So that's for my Lyme disease pals so they can get information and just, what is it like for me living with late stage Lyme and all the lovely things that it has done to my body. I'm being very, very, very sarcastic when I say that. I have to say things with a smile and try to keep laughing at it. So that's very important to me. What else we do? Oh, my occasional vitamin M videos. That's me dancing around and being silly playing the flute. People have asked me why my practice is Happy and Healthy Wellness. You can't be healthy if you're not happy. It's very simple. So while it sounds like kind of like a cliche name, like I couldn't name my practice anything besides that. And the happy thing kind of fits me most of the time. I'm pretty bubbly. But anyhow, so if you hit subscribe in the bottom, that would be fantastic. And then also if you take a look, there's a little bell right next to the subscribe button. If you hit that, anytime I have a new video that comes out, yay you get to be the first person that's notified of that. All right, everybody, have a fantastic, fantastic day. I look forward to seeing you guys again soon, and be well. Mwah. Love you guys. Bye.